All right, everybody, we got a good episode for you today. Second day of the trading year. We had a crazy day yesterday. I didn't do a video because I wanted to see what would happen this week. So we had a pretty kind of a crazy last 2 days. So we're kind of on an upward swing overall, ending the year, starting into 2021. And then we just had this crater. It went down basically from, 102,500 down to 96,400. So just call it, that was about $6,000. Stayed down there for a while and then just shot back up. It's the weirdest thing. I couldn't tell you exactly why it happened like this, but to see it plummet, go flat across the board and go straight up was really freaking bizarre. So one of the things I've seen, I decided to look a little further, and I looked at it a little bit deeper, like on a wider scale. And I looked at this. This is the last month. Now, normally when you look at stock market charts, they're kind of like jittery, right? They're kind of like, somebody with Parkinson's disease, or it looks like an EKG. But if we look over the month and look at this, it's shoot up, shoot down, flat, shoot down, shoot up. And then it went up a little bit, flat, drop down, shoot up, flat, shoot up, drop down, shoot up, flat, drop down, shoot up. It's just been really weird. I've never seen anything like this before. So I don't know what's going on. So if you're seeing that in your portfolio, just understand, if you see something go down, it's ready to come up. We see that over and over again. We see it here, 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 and we see it here. So I was tempted to buy. I didn't really think about it back then, but I still was tempted to buy something. But we're going to go through the picks today, and I'll show you what I did and whether I bought something or not. So before we get into that, I'll talk about some news. Stocks making the biggest move after the bell. There's nothing really, tremendous up here. Myriad Genetics, a biotech firm, Smart Global Holdings, and Nectar Therapeutics, which is another biotech firm. So nothing really amazing going on there. I did notice the last few days that even though this was super crazy and up and down like a manic depressive, that oil's been up lately. So we looked at that, and so that's kind of been a cool thing. And that underlies, where there's oil, it means there's people ordering oil. Where they're ordering oil, there's demand. And where there's demand, there's money being made. And where there's money being made, we make money. But the other one, as we all know, is the Georgia runoffs. I think those are happening today. I haven't turned on the news at all. I'll just give you my take on it as a straight up independent. I kind of and it's mainly just because the Democrats have been crazy. So it's not that I'm anti-Democrat. There's certain Democrats I love. I love Tulsi Gabbard. I like Ro Khanna. I don't agree with everything he says, but I think he's an incredibly reasonable guy, and I have no problem with him whatsoever. Ron Wyden out of Oregon is generally a good guy. Goes off the deep end occasionally. One of the people I went to high school with was Ted Lieu. He's not on that list. Dude's crazy. The dude is absolutely a nutbag. So I was a senior. He was a junior. We went to high school together. I don't know where he got his philosophy from, but he's a total crazy person. But that being said, the Democrats have basically promised to upend everything and just do the craziest things if they get power. So if they get those 2 seats today, which they might, we'll see, it's just making one of the prisoners the warden of the prison. So, but then you say, well, should we vote for Republicans? Well, look at what the Republicans did. Pretty much Trump took over the party, and the Republican Party is completely different than it was 4 years ago, much less 8 years ago or 12 years ago. And with the absolute fecklessness they're a bunch of empty suits. There's a big part of me that just says, you know what, the heck with them. You don't want to reward them. You don't want to have them hold you hostage and say, well, you better vote for Perdue and Loeffler, otherwise the Democrats are going to run. So what, are you holding us hostage so that we can elect you and give you more power when you totally don't deserve it? Part of me thinks it's like, you know what, you ought to sit out. And realistically, and this is where I was thinking, is the Trump Republicans, which there are a lot of, and there's a lot of people new to supporting Trump that aren't the typical Republicans, they need to form a third party. Realistically, they need to form a Make America Great Party or America Great Party or something like that party. And in the short term, it'll probably absolutely siphon off Republican votes and help Democrats. But realistically, the Republicans need to know that they're not going to get our votes. They're not going to get Republican votes. They're not going to get conservative votes. They're not going to get libertarian votes. And the crazier the Democrats are, it doesn't mean we're more likely to vote Republicans. It's the same reason with the blackout movement, where it's like, just because you're black doesn't mean you should vote Democrat. You need to not vote for them, make them scared to death that they're going to lose a massive block of people, and then they're going to start paying attention to you and doing the things you want to do. And so I think the people who are libertarians, small L libertarians, big L libertarians, whatever, I think a message needs to be sent, short term, long term, I don't know, but that needs to be sent. We'll see what happens for the market today, or tomorrow rather, based on what happens today. And if it's as shady of an election as it was before, because I'm telling you, it was season 2 Narcos, this past election. And if you guys haven't watched Narcos, watch season 2, because they conduct an election in Colombia. And it's pretty much exactly what happened in our country. In fact, the people that did the software for Narcos 2, the voting that went on, is the exact same company that did the software for our election. So if you haven't watched Narcos, watch season 1 for sure, watch season 2, and you'll get a sense of exactly what happened behind the scenes. So kind of crazy. All right. So with that being said, looked at some coronavirus numbers, and we're going to look at some demographics. And this is kind of crazy. So I've always been the first person to downplay things, and if it's well-deserved, it's well-deserved. I'm going to call balls and strikes. I don't have a philosophical outcome that I'm waiting to see. I'm looking at the data, and we're going to take a look and see what the data says. So, all right. So look at the hospital data. And one of the things I noticed, they showed hospitalizations, obviously has gone up dramatically, right? And they start from 0, which is important. A lot of charts don't start from 0. So the fact they're starting from 0 gives you a good perspective on where things are at. ICUs have obviously gone up a little, quite a bit. We look at bed capacity, and this is what I noticed. All beds in use, relatively the same. It's gone up a little bit, but it's been above this 4,000 line forever. But then look at this COVID thing. It went up from, I just picked a number around 230, 240, and now it's all the way up to 1,500. So you're looking at 1,300 more beds from COVID, but we're not seeing that here. So if you took 1,300 beds away, you'd be sitting here around 3,100 beds being used if there's no COVID here. So what that does is it drops it all the way down to right about here. So you would see a plummet in the amount of beds being used. And so you'd say, well, what is that? Well, the obvious reason is nobody wants to go to the hospital when they think the hospital's full of COVID patients, because where do you catch MRSA? Well, you catch MRSA at the hospital. Where do you catch COVID? Well, a lot of people are thinking you catch COVID at the hospital. So a lot of people are avoiding the hospital if they can at all avoid it. But the question is, are there enough beds? Of course there's enough beds. There's 4,400 beds in use. There's 5,960, call it 6,000 beds in use. There's 1,600 beds available for people if they need to do that. So the beds aren't really an issue. It's just a matter of we're playing a zero-sum game with the patients. The more COVID patients come in, the fewer non-COVID patients come in. So, it's kind of like when you see a neighborhood, they call it it's not the opposite of gentrification is ghetto. It's ghettoification, I think is the word, when a neighborhood starts to go downhill. When you start to see that happen, the people who can afford to move. And that's kind of what you're seeing. The more people have a choice not to go to the hospital, the more you're seeing that they're not going. Obviously, if you have a heart attack, you don't have a choice. If you suffered a gunshot wound, you don't have a choice. But anybody who has a choice of going to the hospital or not is avoiding it. Pardon the phrase, it's accurate, like the plague. I can't believe I'd ever even use that and not be joking, but that's exactly what they're avoiding it like. So we see hospitalizations go up. It's pretty much all COVID. This is a crazy little chart. I think you ever little data nerds that do this are just getting a little ahead of themselves, but it doesn't really help me a whole lot or you. Look at age distribution of the cases. Again, it's gone up tremendously. So one of the things that I looked at today, I wanted to look at the survival rate if you're under 60. So we basically pulled up all the people who have cases of COVID, positive cases. So we're going to add all these up: 38,782, 31,117, 31,117, 24,798, 23,245, and that's everybody who's 60 or under. And then we have 6, 12, 18, 49. Let's see, at 68. No, I take that back. 58, 67, 167, 197, 204. So we're going to take that off. So 204. So we'll divide 204, 621, 35, 6, 20, 21, divided by 135, 835. And we have, if you're under 60 years old, we have a survival rate of, and just multiply times 100 to make it easy, 99.842. So if you're under 60, your survival rate is 99.842, which means if you have 1,000 people, let's just say you fill an arena, a 10,000 foot, or let's go 20,000 foot arena, a 20,000 person arena. If you have 20,000 people in an arena, just say it's an NBA basketball arena, and you have 20,000 people in there that all have positive COVID cases, and they're all under 60, 1,996 of them will survive, 1,000, and basically 32 will not. It's that simple. So what's crazy, though, is when we go above those numbers change dramatically. So you can just eyeball this right here. 1,000 hospitalized out of 5,000 positive cases. That means that you're going to have a 20% chance of being hospitalized if you're over 80. 1 out of 5. That's a big number. 739 deaths out of 4,900. You can just eyeball that right there. That's about a 15 to 16, 17% chance. Call it 1 out of 6 chance of dying if you're positive over 80. So again, not that great of a situation. All right, as we go into deaths again, it's the same type of thing. All the deaths are sitting here at the high end, 80 to 90. And then we look at all the recent deaths, and this is crazy. I know we always talk about this before. And what's happening right now is you're going to see is there is a mass purging of our older population. It's not mass purging because there's a lot of old people here, but everything you're seeing here is old people. So everything here, 70s, 80s, 60s is the young one. 61, I think, is the youngest one here. They all have underlying health conditions, or they don't have it yet, but they're going to pretty much all be yeses because we never see no's. Same thing here, but we have 90, 99, 90, 100 with underlying health conditions. Good night. That's going to be the curtain call right there. 98, I think 65 is your young one. 80, 78. Then we go back a couple days. We had 48, but it had an underlying health condition. So that's, that kind of plays into it. 92, 96, 93. I mean, all of them, yes, across the board. So as we start to see these numbers go up, where is this here? As you start to see the numbers go up, the deaths go up, it's affecting the older people, but it's not affecting the younger people. So if we look at demographics, again, and we're going to bring this up and talk about public health policy. If you look at anybody who's under 30, we've had 18 people under 30 when we've had, 70,000 people right here, 80,000, 95,000 people here, only 18 people have died, which is nothing. It's virtually zero. So yet we're all shutting down restaurants, which the younger people are going to go to. They're shutting down gyms, which the younger people are going to go to. They're shutting down pretty much everything, schools and other things where the younger people are going to. And yet the only people that are at serious risk that are dying on here are people in here. So we have a vaccine out, and yet they're giving the vaccine to essential workers. Like, I'll give you an example, an essential worker, like the 19-year-old grocery clerk at the grocery store down the street. Yeah, she's in this age range. Nobody's died, and they're giving it to her. So they need to straight up just give it all to these people, and we can be out of this sooner than later. But yes, we are hitting our second wave. This is exactly what we talked about a long time ago. This is what the second wave looks like. The second wave is always worse than the first wave. The deaths in the second wave are, again, worse. And I think part of it is you look at lockdown fatigue. You're going to see people that are just sick of not seeing their family forever. And what happens is the disease starts to spread. You get a new variant that spreads more easily. You get lockdown fatigue. And then what happens is the older people pay for it. And that's what you're seeing right here. But with the vaccines coming out, the good news is the light is at the end of the tunnel, and we need to start investing as such. So we looked at today, had a good day today, went up about $4,000. Basically, it's a straight reversal of what we had yesterday. If we look at, let's get this thing open. I thought it was open, so we'll get our stock screener. There we go. All right, so we'll look at movement for 2 days. And it's going to be relatively kind of flat. We have a couple big ones here. Luckily, we don't own any of these. Hall of Fame, Playa, and Ashford Incorporated. Those took the biggest hits. The rest of them are all within kind of a standard deviation. And then the ones that actually did the best over the last 2 days, we own all 5 of them. So that's a beautiful thing. And we're going to talk about Bitcoin Cash in a second. So over the last day, the biggest loser was A and C. We don't have either of the, I mean, it's basically this one, and then everything's within a standard deviation. Again, we don't own pretty much any of these. And then the biggest gainers, we're doing a pretty good job as far as our ownership in that area. So one of the things that I noticed here is Bitcoin. So let's take a look at this right here. Bitcoin is all the way up to 34,000. This is insane. I mean, look at this. We look at Bitcoin over the last, let's call it 6 months. You could have got Bitcoin. In fact, let's go a year. You could have got Bitcoin right here at 5,200, and it's now sitting here at 33,000. That is a 6 times increase, which is kind of crazy. So we look at Bitcoin Cash. You could have got it here at 167, and we're starting to see the same type of increase. Not as big as Bitcoin is so far, but it's definitely moving in the right direction. So I bought, I think, at 310. We're at 410 right now, and just an amazing to see where that is going. So overall, portfolio as a whole, AMC got hit, and it's just you're gonna have to wait until we get a little bit of clearance from the second wave before we see the stock moving. So we're not going to be too worried about this. AHT, when it jumps quick, so I'm not really too worried about that. Corsair is a little bit of a flyer. They do our software chips, and Nikola and NXTD are again stocks that I think are really good, but give it some time. We're not doing anything with those. And then Texas Hospitality, a little bit, it's been hovering in the single red digits, but we'll be fine. But overall, we see stocks like, where do we have our favorite stocks here? So what am I looking at? Oh, Signet. It's up 355. We're on our way to quintuple that stock. I can't believe how well this stock is doing. We have Caesars doing 316, so we've quadrupled that. Crestwood Equities come back a little bit on that, but we're basically just about quadrupled on that one. And let's see, we have Redwood Trust is in a triple mode. Let's highlight those guys. Every is about to be in triple mode. PVAC's about to be in triple mode. And overall, we're doing really good. 80% gain on what we bought it for. And based on what we initially invested, we're still over triple. So again, this has been hovering lately. We got to understand as we look over the last month, it's been relatively flat. So we haven't had a big move yet, but when we start to look at when it gains, you're going to see it start to jump up like this. So we're going to start to see another gain where it's flat, goes down a little bit, and we start to see a consistent gain. So maybe after all the political turmoil, we'll see that. But again, relatively the same thing. We're kind of in a period right now that was a little bit like right here, but we just need a little bit of impetus for it to jump up. But we're on our pace. We're doing a good job. And we are sitting here still on pace to get to about 290,000. And we have a bunch of stocks in the red from where we want them to be as far as they're past what we expected them to go to. And again, we're moving in the right direction, guys. So with that being said, we'll see what happens in the election. Again, I am what did Charlie Chaplin say? I think, or no, it was, I forget who had said it, but he said, I never want to be a part of a group that would have me as a member. I am not I won't be ever part of a political party. The Democrats are crazy. I mean, they're just loco and la cabeza. They're crazy. So you don't want to see them win, but at the same time, you don't want to reward Republicans whose main message is don't let the crazy people win. Okay, that's fine, but why should you be in there? You're a bunch of rhinos. You're a bunch of people who are just political animals. You're not helping. And the biggest person that attracted the votes for you this year was the president. And you stabbed him in the back and you left him and did not help him when the biggest election fraud ever. I mean, Series 2 Narcos. If you haven't seen that, go watch that. It's nutso. It's even the same company that ran that one is the one that ran the election here. So with that being said, I don't have any favorites. I don't know who I'm rooting for, whatever. But in the end, I'm rooting for this number. So we'll get up to that number. With that being said, we'll see what happens tomorrow. I'm going to have a take either way. If the Democrats win both seats, legitimately, trust me, I will have an opinion. If there's shady stuff going on like happened before, I will definitely have an opinion. If it's a split, a one-on-one, I'll have an opinion. We'll see who won and who lost because I have opinions on Loeffler and Perdue and Warnock and Ossoff. I have an opinion on all four of them. And if the Republicans win both, you're going to get an opinion there. So stay tuned. I will talk to you hopefully tomorrow. But if it's anything like that last election, may not know for a week after all the trucks of blank ballots are brought in. So with that being said, I will see you tomorrow. To get more information on the sales cheat code, go ahead and click on the subscribe button below. Also, down below in the video description, down there, there's a link that takes you to our website that gives you additional content, some additional freebies that we have, and gives you information on some programs that we have that have been proven to help people to make sales easy so that you can make the kind of money you want, live the lifestyle that you've always wanted, and not have to struggle in the process. And what might be the coolest thing of all is you don't have to put much effort into it. It truly is a cheat code that most people don't know about. And it's a cheat code that can change your life today. So click on the link below and let me help you start to experience these results starting right now.